Welcome to What's the Point? A weekly discussion of truth, realities, challenges, theological and philosophical views, national policies, and international concerns. Welcome to What's the Point? Today we're going to be continuing our new series, Uprooting Covert Sins, and we're actually going to be focusing on the sin envy. So, Dad, what do you think envy means? How do we define envy?
I think the simple definition of envy is being jealous of what others have or what others have received from someone. Yeah. So really wanting to have it also for yourself, with a little question of why he has that or she has that and why don't I have that as well. So that's to me the root or the simple definition of envy.
Okay. And what do you think, Josh? How do we define envy? Like, it
Go
seems
on.
to not be a very commonly, we use jealous more than envy, but how would you define envy?
I think along with that, like a lot of times envy, you could see the root of envy as the lack of contentment in your life.
That's
So
good.
it's crazy because when you think about envy, right? A lot of times, if you're really being honest, envy happens because you're not content with what God has for your life right now. So then you begin to envy somebody else, you begin to have comparison. So that's the main thing, is that it's like the lack of contentment allows you to have envy. That's what allows you to have comparison. So like going to the roots of it. So like the main thing there is like what you're really saying by being envious is you're saying, God, I don't like what you have for my life right now. If you're really seeing it, you know. So
Or
big, yeah.
or what I have is not enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also want his car, a car like his, a house like hers, the position like his. Why was it given to him? Why was he the one promoted, not me?
That's the main
Yeah.
thing too, is that like if your language to yourself often when you're talking to yourself is like that's good for them but me or not me, that's a good indication that like maybe you are struggling with the sin of envy if your narrative is always but me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, oh, that's good for them, but what about me?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly.
We really ask God.
But envy is a very close relative of jealousy, of course. So in fact, they're interchanged in the Bible often. But envy is also directly related with greed and lack of contentment. Because if you are really not greedy and you're really content, I don't think you will envy because you're happy with what you have. I'm happy with what I have. He has that. Very good for him.
Now I have okay, so kind of just going off with that, because the next question one of the questions I have is what is the difference of envy and jealousy? Is it one and the same? Why are there two different terms? Because I feel like envy seems deeper than just jealousy, but I don't know.
To me, they are interchanged depending on the version of the Bible you read. So even the translators of the Bible interpret envy and jealousy interchangeably. But I think I would like to think that envy is more intense, a little bit more intense, really, than jealousy. Jealousy can be more shallow, but it's the same. It's the same.
Could jealousy be more like in the moment, but envy is more like something that goes on? Okay, like for example, would jealousy be oh, they have I'm gonna go, let's say we go to an ice cream store and I get cookies and cream and Josh gets mint chocolate chip. And I'm like, oh man, I'm jealous. I should have gotten mint chocolate chip instead of cookies and cream. Something like that's happening at the moment. But envy would be more like, I envy the fact that Josh got blessed with this, but I blessed with something, a great job, and I did it. Something like that. Could that be a
Yeah,
use of it?
could be, or envy is more, as I've said earlier, like superficial or circumstantial. But I'm sorry, jealousy more circumstantial or superficial, whereas envy is more like internal or inherent
Mm.
in you. You're really an envious person generally. Um, you envy anything that you should have as well.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, no, I'm good. Why was I not promoted? And why did I not get that deal? That should be mine.
Yeah.
So something like that. Or why is it that she has that kind of house which is not as good as me?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Why is
So
it that
comparison is a very big.
yeah, comparison, and now if you are not careful, but comparison and competition can be good if you use it like in business purely to hit targets and the likes. But if it gets into you, uh, and you really get envious already of others, then you're born into the covert.
Mm.
It's nice to compete. Like who does not like to compete in basketball or in golf or in billiards? So if you compete for the game, that is not being envious. But if you are really inside you coveting already, uh, and really feeling very bad about another person's success, that's envy already.
I think a great
Uh,
is like when competition is good, but if it begins to consume your life, then that's the like the line. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like Dad was saying, like when like competition begins to consume you, then it becomes problematic. And also too, I've heard this crazy thing by Tim Tebow. I was looking at it, I think on Instagram today. It was cool because he was talking about how like comparison is dangerous because actually they did a study and 12% of all the thoughts you have on a daily basis is about comparison with other people. So for every
Wow.
12% of what you think about every day is about comparison, which is pretty fascinating. So
That's
and
pretty
that's
yeah,
something
high,
that's
actually.
that's pretty high. And so that's something to think about. What else instead of that 12% with comparison, how can we make that lower? And then what would our lives look like if that 12% was instead like harnessed towards thanking God or harnessed towards thinking more about God, you know?
Hmm.
Because 12%, if you look at what that is, that's like, 2 hours a day or something, you know what I mean? Or something like
Well,
that.
if you were
That
to think about how many hours a day are you awake and like functional, right? Because like at least eight
that's
hours is sleeping already. So
exactly.
12% of a working day of a regular day, that's a good amount of time that you're wasting comparing, which I know that it's especially in our generation right now with social media and people tend to compare each other because social media is very good to share photos or share things with your family, but it can also quickly become a comparison place because social media, you post your highlights, right? The highlights of your day, the highlights of your trip. You don't really see, no one posts on social media the negative things, and so a lot of people tend to compare their lives to what they see on social media, what their friends or family are doing, thinking that that is how they live 100% of the time, when what you see is one photo or a couple photos, short snippets of an entire weekend. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
so a lot of people also use it negatively, like social media negatively affects them.
well,
Mm.
media in general, social media just emphasized it. But from the very start, media in general was building up greed, uh, comparison, envy, because it creates a false satisfaction. Now, media, if you notice the advertisements, they are actually telling you this is what life is. And then you begin to think, but that's not my life. So you aspire for that. You envy that life. Now, why is it that when they advertise like liquor or some alcoholic drinks, it has to be a beautiful woman around that advertisement? So it is targeting men, as if to say, do you have a woman as beautiful as that? Then take Johnny Walker.
Right.
Something like that. So shoes. It is always like attributed to a great basketball star or something like that. So do you want to be a star like him?
Then you have to
Wear
have
the
these
shoes.
shoes.
The problem with like social media, along with that, is like it's just very difficult because like if you look at our lives, like no matter who you are, it's hard for you to escape comparison because it's all over, right? Like you see on TV, and it's some of it is like subconscious because like that's the culture that we live in, But the thing with social media as well is not only do you see different, like if you look at the surface, you see different people's lives and then you begin to compare. But also then another one is on the actual phone itself, like when you see the likes and then yours doesn't match up, that makes you like, you know what I'm saying? It makes it even worse because you're saying, oh, I only had this much likes on this post.
Yeah.
Then it puts on you next to, put more filters or go to bigger places. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of underlying pressures, actually. It's not only, oh, how am I measuring up, but how many likes am I getting? You know what I'm saying?
But it's so stupid because there's like algorithms, like people think that the number, and because there are plenty of people that really worry about their followers and likes, when there's an algorithm. I actually read about this one time, of like what time is the best time to post, right? Because there's so much content that you obviously physically cannot watch all of them. So someone might have more likes because of the time of day that they posted and their stuff showed up more. But if you put your value in the amount of likes that you get, it's a horrible way. Number one, you know what I mean? Like your value should not come from that.
The issue with that is there's something inherently physical in that because they did research as well. And the likes that one gets actually gives them a boost of like dopamine or some sort of like thing that they become addicted and crave it. So it's not only like, oh, it's actually very difficult to rewire yourself in that manner because it's physical. People don't understand. It's like, oh, I can get off of it. It's really difficult to get off because you get addicted to the like, because each like that you see actually gives you a boost of like, this.
It's like an imaginary person that clapped for you.
It's literally a drug. No joke. It's literally a drug. Getting a like on Instagram or on social media is similar to getting a high on cocaine. It's a drug, literally. So that's what's hard to get.
Is that really in the minds of many millennials today, that when they post, the intention is to create a lot of likes?
Definitely.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like, they don't really use social media to just store like photos. They do it. It has to be aesthetic looking so that people would like it, like, like their posts. And then they get demoralized if like they work so hard on this post and it like didn't get any. Because when you see a photo, they didn't just take that picture and post it. They took that and they edited it and they made sure that the angles were right. It was a lot of work done into that one photo. And when they don't get the likes that they want to get, or someone else similar got more likes, because in their mind, it's like, oh, I'm doing this so I can get more likes. Or even if you don't think that, inherently, you're thinking, okay, I'm working so much to do this one picture. I would like it to be acknowledged. And if acknowledged meaning likes, and if it's not acknowledged that way, it like, and sometimes I've felt that. Sometimes I would like post something or like a video and it works so hard on it and I get like 5 likes and it'll like make me not upset, but like, oh, that sucks. But then I have to think like, who cares? Because really, I really made that for me.
I heard this thing too, like, and a lot of people I think are relating to this, but I've heard this thing where it's like, it's very tiring, honestly, to like constantly deal with comparison because it drains you. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you look at really comparison in your life, and if you're being honest, it's as if you're like, in a treadmill constantly. You're doing a lot of motion and like running, but like you're in the exact same place you started in. So that's what
Wow.
happens to your life when comparison gets in the way, because that's what it starts to feel like, where it's like, oh man, like I'm doing a lot of these excess motions, but I haven't gone anywhere. It's because you couldn't even take a step further because comparison has already consumed your life to where you're like, there's not even a point in moving, you know?
Right, because you keep looking left and right to see what everybody's up to. You can't really go forward because you're just running in the same place because you can't focus forward.
And it's tough too, because an example would be like, you see yourself, you like had a great time, let's just say in Paris, Texas, right? It's like very nice, like, oh my goodness, this is like, I just want a break. So you go to this nice little town, right? And then you see your friend on Instagram went to Paris, France, and then now you don't even, now you're like upset because you originally enjoyed Paris, Texas, but because of social media, now you covet Paris, France, and then you don't no longer enjoy your vacation. So a lot of things like that
Mhm.
are happening these days. You know what I mean? Where it's like, man, like you can't even enjoy your vacation because when you look at other people, you're like, I can't
Like
match
your
up.
vacation is nothing compared to them because you already compared. You started by
But
comparing.
the hard thing about that is no matter what you do, somebody's always gonna have
A better
better.
vacation, yeah.
So it's like you're never gonna be content. That's why it's very difficult for comparison, because you can go higher and higher, higher up, and like at the end of the day, there's still some higher. And let's just say if you are the highest, then it becomes more problematic because
That's the thing. So what do you call a person who does not want to make any post because there are a lot of people who will like it?
what?
Him. That's
Yeah,
dad.
yeah.
Dad
I
literally has
seldom I seldom post because when I post even a very bad swing, I get a lot of likes. Uh,
that's like the opposite. That is who people envy.
I put a very bad swing in Hawaii. To me, a really bad looking one. And I get a lot of likes and comments. Oh, when are you playing golf? When do you play with us? And
I
blah, blah,
think
blah.
you know why, Dad? Because
Yeah.
you have so many friends on Facebook that even if you post something bad, you still have a percentage of people that are like just loyal followers that will just continue to comment on your
But
stuff
here's
no
the
matter
thing,
what.
though. If he had the mindset of comparison, here's the thing. He might have a lot of like, comments on that. But if he had that mentality, comparison, or envy, then he would say, oh, wow, like, that's nice that I have 500 likes, let's just say. But then he'll go towards like, oh, but like, I'm envious of like Rory McIlroy, let's say,
Right,
who
because he has
has
like
500
10,000.
or whatever, and then his swing is better than mine. So not only does he have more likes on his swing, but it's better than mine. So he can have that mentality, and that's very tiring. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's
Now,
like
I have kind of like a follow-up question. Talk about like comparison and being envious of other people's races. But what about like how do you draw the line when you say, well, I'm not being envious. I'm just like having a goal. Like I just want to have a goal and attain it. Like, why is that so bad? You know what I mean? Like if you see someone like say successful, like, oh, I want to have that goal, but where's the line in that? Like, how do you know that it's not envious and you're just, you know what I'm saying, right? Like just trying to like come up with
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. And that's the reason why we call that sin covert, because uh, the, it is when you cross the line that it becomes a sin. And only God and you really knows that you have crossed the line. Because if you are very honest about it, that you are just trying to improve yourself in all honesty, and you benchmark it with another employee whom you admire, that you hope that you could hit the same target as his, because you just want to have the same income as his, and you really are not envious. You just want to have a goal, and it does not consume you. I don't think that is a sin. I think that's motivation.
That's the word.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so if somebody motivates me to be a better person, to like him because he's a good person, he's an achiever, and it motivates me to do better, not to compete, not to compare, not greedy, not covetous about that, but I just want to be better for my own sake. I do think that is envy. To me, that is as a motivation or encouragement, and that's even the reason why we set a good example, not for
Right, right,
people to envy us, but for people to emulate us,
right. To
and they
be
will
to
like
motivate
us.
other people.
People, yeah, to level up, so
Yeah.
that they can be better. Yeah, so that's where envy is not a sin in that sense.
Mm.
So, like, even if you use it in the word, like, I envy your income, but I'm not really consumed to get that. I want the way you work. Maybe I should work like that to be a better person. I envy the way that you handle the problems you have. Maybe so that is not really to me
Envy is more like it's really something that, like Josh said, if you were to
consumes you.
pinpoint it at someone, it would be like
Yeah.
it's very obvious that they're not content. It's different to just be motivated. Like you're content where you're at, but you would like to just be better, but you're not really
Yeah.
like envious of someone or something. You're just like, I want to be better, but then you're not you're just motivated by like other people's successes, not that.
Here's the root too. Like I feel like of envy. A lot of times it comes out of a place of you still thinking you deserve something. So
Wow,
that's
yeah.
really important. How to get rid of envy, let's say, or that, because it's very difficult, is to no longer have the heart or thinking that you deserve anything. Because the reality is the whole Bible is set to show you that you don't deserve anything because you're sinful. So that's the main thing. Once you get out of that mindset of I deserve everything, then now to the mindset of I deserve nothing, then everything becomes a gift. Then you're more thankful and you're less envious because
Mm.
you know that it's by grace that you're able to do things. So, and that's why, like, that's just the game changer. So the enemy would like you to continue to be on that mindset of, envy, because he knows that once you finally understand that, the way to be envy is to say, I don't deserve anything because, I'm a sinner and that I've fallen short. That's when really everything starts to be a gift, which then you get rid of envy and then you enjoy things more and you actually live in the moment. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I just adding to that. If you understand grace, the grace of God, which to me means being blessed far more than what you deserve, and being and punished far less than you deserve, you will never envy anyone.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you already say, "Oh my Lord, I've been so blessed far more than what I deserve. What more do I want?"
Exactly. So even
Um,
the outcome that you wanted didn't happen, you're saying, but I didn't deserve that in the first place.
Right. You
So
didn't
I'm
deserve
okay.
that outcome anyway.
Exactly. I'm blessed, right? It's nice that I try to get that goal. Like, even if I don't reach it, it's like I don't even deserve the fact of trying to get that goal,
Mm.
right? So that's why now it's like, that's it. I can't even be envious of anybody because I know I don't deserve anything,
Wow.
So
That's good.
yeah, but how about envy getting into the relationships, like between spouses? Like now you envy or are really jealous of, so same interchange word, of your husband's or wife's time vis-a-vis friends. Uh, isn't it that I, as the wife, deserve more time than your friends,
Mm.
than your golf, than your work, than So where does envy now cross the line? Because it's envy or jealousy. Don't I deserve more attention than that lady office mate of yours?
So
Do I? Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
there was something you told me, or maybe told me and Josh too. I don't know, when we were younger, with regards to similar to that. But basically you said as a person, you have multiple roles, right, in life. And so you said, okay, Carrie, you're Carrie the student, Carrie the sister, Carrie the friend, Carrie the, employee, Carrie the spouse. So then I when you told me this, we were still young, so you were using yourself as an example. You're like, I'm Harold the pastor, Harold the friend, Harold the sibling, stuff like that. And so I think that having a balance of how or where or when you spend time in your specific roles. So like if your spouse or your relationship is asking for something that like you have to be able to still have time for yourself. So if they're like, oh, you're playing golf, but let's say you only played golf like once a week, right? Or you weren't really playing golf like 24 hours a day, and they still get mad at that, that would be pretty selfish on the other person's side. But then if you only just play golf, but you don't do anything else, or you only just hang out with your friends, but you don't hang out with your family or anything, then that also becomes a problem. So it's just like finding the balance, I guess, of
Yeah.
what
So
you're
I think
doing.
that's key. That's key. Actually, uh, if you are trying to do it to check an imbalance, that's not wrong, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you check your husband. You have been playing golf 4 times a week, and we cannot even have a quality dinner together once a week. I don't think that is right anymore. So you are not being envious of your husband's golf time vis-a-vis your dinner once, but you are just trying to set the balance. I mean, come on. You might have been too consumed about that, and you forgot the other parts of who you are and what you should be doing. So that to me is not wrong. That to me is not wrong. But to be unreasonably envious, as if you want all the attention, you want all example, as I said, that's my actually what you said, Kay. I often say that until today. In other words, you can be Josh the pastor, Josh the golfer, Josh the friend, and Josh the husband example. But you have been using like 80% of your time to Josh the golfer. It it will not be uh, wrong for the church to say, well, Josh the pastor, you are not doing much for
Right.
being the pastor. I think you have to reduce your this to balance. So that is not envy.
Right.
When you try to call on a balance in a person's life in a relationship. But when it's just be unreasonable, like your husband is just late by 1 hour coming home and had an overtime, and you already like, uh,
Yeah, I mean there
jealous of that
are
and say,
that would be, or like if they, let's say that what I've seen a lot too, here when people that I know here would, they would get mad if like their husband's always home, right? Like every weekend. And then one weekend he says, I want to go have guys' night. And he gets mad. Or backwards, like the girl says, I want to have girls' night to hang out with my friends. And the spouse gets mad, like, you can't do that. Like, why not? Why can't that person be a friend as well?
I
It
think a lot of it too has to do with like what y'all were mentioning, control. Because at that point now, like the envy is like mixed with control. So it's like, you know, they're envious because the person does not feel like they have control of the situation. Or
mm,
so that could be a portion of it too, where it's like, they're envious because they're necessarily really envious because they no longer have control of the situation.
yes,
if you
exactly.
notice, but you notice, uh, the issue with envy revolves around self
Mm,
and
yeah.
self-importance. I want this for myself as well. So it's like greed. I need to have the same recognition. I need to have the same possession,
I
position,
need to have more time. I need
It's
to
and
it,
more time. And so
hard.
it's really about a little bit of self, an entitlement.
It's
That's the
so
reason why
hard.
you envy.
It's hard because like the world, like, teaches us to be about ourselves. That's why it's so difficult because they don't know it. But like, even if you're a Christian, or even if there's still like there's still a lot of pressure from the world to say, it's all about yourself, this and that, So
right, because we have, it's so hard to talk about this when like after, let's say after this phone call, right? And a friend was talking to you about a problem they've had in their relationship, let's just say, because we're talking about relationships, and they decide they want to break off the relationship or whatever, and like your advice to your friend would be like, yeah, you need to focus on taking care of yourself and all that. So I guess it always goes back to balance, because you have to take care of yourself, but you also should not be controlling, and like find that happy medium, like that balance of where you should stand whenever in your different roles. Because like Josh said, it's just hard, because like even though we try not to do that, it's kind of like embedded in our society and in how we think to always watch out for ourselves.
Exactly.
Very early in like after I was a pretty competitive guy when I was in college, so I think that was really covertly envious. I got awards, I got positions in college because I was really seeking for it, and I sort of love that kind of awards and honors, and so if others have better honors than me, I felt bad, or if I should have discerned that in my thinking, I felt bad or would compete heavily to get that instead of his. So there was that very intensely until I, I think a year or so after I graduated from college, I was serving as a deacon of Capital City Alliance Church. And my mentor, Pastor Abuzen, in a Bible study, what he said really until now stuck to my head. And he said, it was about God's sovereignty. He was saying that no person should compare himself with anyone else, because what God has for you is different from what God has for others.
Mm.
What God has for others is different from God is for you. So instead of being envious, you simply just ask God, Lord, what is it that is for me? And what is it that you want me to do? And I'll
And that's
focus
a
on
great
that
point.
more than comparing it with others.
That's a great point, too. You mentioned that, because a lot of times the enemy is really good. Because if you look at it, what is the reason why the enemy is doing that to people? The reason why the enemy is allowing comparison to happen is because it's to distract you from doing what God wants to do in your life. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
like that's just so like hard, because like that's what the enemy is doing, is to distract you. So you look at people's lives that you no longer see that, God has a unique design for your life, one of one. And so the enemy knows that. And so like
Yeah.
that's why it's trying to get you to not do that.
You no longer see the value in your own life.
Exactly, because you no longer see the value in your own life.
Yeah, you're looking into other people's, instead of like just focusing on God had you on the certain path, but you keep looking around, and so you can't finish what you're supposed to be doing
And
according to what God planned.
if you look at like how, again, going back to like the first sin ever committed by man, if you look at how it happened, the enemy actually tried one time and he failed, because the first one, he was like, did God really, what is it? Did God really say to not eat of this fruit? And then that they actually passed that test, because like they're like, well, God said not to eat of this, right? And then the
Hmm.
enemy hit him with this, which is comparison, really. And I guess part of it, like it made them maybe a little bit like jealous of the potential. The enemy then said, okay, now I know I can't fool them, because they know God's word of like God said to them, don't do this, right? Now I'm
Right.
gonna hit them with this. Then the reason why God is saying don't do that is because he is withholding some power from you, because he doesn't want you to become like him.
Right. So then he used comparison even in the
Exactly.
very first sin. Like he doesn't want you to be like him. It was already a comparison inherently in there. Like you
Exactly.
want you.
Satan was thrown out of heaven because he was trying to compare himself with God and wanted to be like God.
Exactly.
Yeah, so kicked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he somehow envied
And the
the
same
position.
formula for his demise he's using to try to destroy a lot of lives today. It's the same formula for a very long time. In fact, wars have started because of envy and jealousy. I have a bigger kingdom. A lot of these different things have started because of this thing that the enemy has been using for thousands of years, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, it's really fascinating to think how at the core of it, it's the same like scheme.
Yes, exactly. No, it's been the same issue from before, from way before. Last question I have on envy, and it just wraps it up along with what's the point is how can we hold envy captive? And then really, what's the point of us discussing envy?
Again, I will say what I said earlier, that the way to contain, control, or stop, for that matter, your envy, is to realize, number one, that you don't deserve anything, as Josh said, but that all that you have is a product of grace.
Mm.
Uh, you do not deserve. You have been so blessed more than far what God gave you, far more than what you deserve, and even punished you far less than what you deserve. And so, being content, I think, being content with what God has for you would solve a lot of envy. And being happy, intentionally happy for what others have, as if they were yours as well. Sharing in their happiness will make you happy even when others are successful. I really am happy you have a new house without any envy at all. You really enjoy it, like you also bought it for yourself. And it will, I was really happy for your winnings. I was
Yeah.
happy for your promotion. Even if it was supposed to be yours. I mean, because he was chosen, you just give, okay, I'm happy for you.
But I think that would also make you just like happier inside if you truly like, you can be happy with fake happy outside, but inside, I think that is it actually would make you a happier person if you just truly, genuinely, intentionally wanted to be happy for someone else.
I will say too, it's like, for me, like understanding, like, that the way to combat that is like, because a lot of times if you're really being honest with yourself, it's this aspect that, hey, you are envy or jealous because you don't think you're blessed enough. Like you don't think that, like, the level of your faith or the level of how you're living your life, like, equates to your blessings in this life. But that's why, like, what that was saying, going back to the point of like not deserving anything, that's why it's huge, because everything is a gift. So
yeah. That's good.
Especially when you work, when you are in the business world. I often told, Harold, but why did you allow that? That's supposed to be you. You should have been credited for that. That you should have been the one acknowledged for that. That was you. Why did he grab the credit away from you? And I just laughed and said, okay, he can have all the glory. I just want the money.
my question is this, that like, I have a question. I want to know, like, what y'all think of it. I guess both of y'all, like, this aspect of, like, because somebody might be on the fence and say, hey, look, I understand what y'all are saying, but like, because like, for me, it's like, if I didn't have that like burn in my heart to look what other people have and to like really desire that,
or like the drive,
then I wouldn't be at the place or promoted as I am today. So then how would you combat that?
That is exactly what I said earlier, that you should not be to a point that you don't care anymore.
Right, because that's just as
because
bad.
then that's fatalism, that's laziness, that's bad. Now you need other people to motivate you to be a better person, but not that you are envious about them that motivates you to be a better person. But God said we are His workmanship, meaning that we are being transformed to be better every day. So by not even thinking of getting better, you are also not following God's will there, because you're a work in progress, and you have to get better in every aspect of your life. Yeah.
I think for me, how we always say we want to be Christ-like. We have to act Christ-like. So that right there, we're not being envious of Jesus, because there's no way that we could be like Jesus, but we use him as like a motivation of how we should live our life, how we should act, how we should forgive, how we should do things to other people. We use him as a motivation instead of someone we would be envious of. So I think if it is perfectly fine to use other people as benchmarks, you could say, oh wow, they're really successful, I would like to be just as successful as them, but not that I want their success. Like,
I remember too, like as a kid, Like I remember, like Dad. I don't know what it was for me. I think I was trying to like get a kick from him, but I remember all the time telling him like, "Oh, like hey, look, Dad, like what would you do one day if I'm better at you at this, or what would you do one day, Dad, if I'm like better at you at that?" And his response would always be like, "That's really good. That's exactly what I want. I want you to be better than me. This is not. You know what I'm saying?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's something that like I hope parents get as well, where they're not envious of their kids or whatever it is. Because the point is, you want your kids to be better than you at everything, right? That means you're a great
Mm.
parent.
Yeah.
So
No, that's good.
yeah. In fact, that's really the point. I was about to say that this is the problem with some people, not only as a parent, but some people who have known themselves to be successful without them knowing. When somebody comes close to them, they actually
Mm.
envy. You get insecure. Now, the parent side should be, it's a different thing. Meaning a parent should really be happy if their children become better than them, because that should really be the goal. But example, in the office, you're known to be the best performer, and all of a
Mm.
sudden someone comes close, and
You
it's
feel
taking
the
the glory
need
out of.
to
Then, then,
wants
then
to
you feel that,
compete.
yeah. Then you're not really happy about him coming near you, because like, I'm supposed to be the
I
stiff
mean,
carry
the
here.
the
Yeah,
Christ-like thing to do would be if someone was close, right? Close to being as successful as you, you'd be like,
yeah,
"Hey, let me train you so that you
yeah,
could be better." Because you might not know these little tips and tricks, but if you do this, you'd be better. And then share in their happiness. Because if you really like a normal person, like they would acknowledge who has helped them along the way, and if they don't acknowledge, who cares? It's fine, right? But
mm,
it
mm,
also makes you feel kind of, I mean, for me, I feel like it would make me feel kind of proud, like, oh wow, like I did kind of, like, I helped him get there, and that's amazing. Like, I'm not envious of it. Like, it's awesome that like I was able to be a part of that. And
like,
yeah,
I'll give you an example. Like since it's like final season for like the Warriors, let's just say. So an example will be like Steph Curry, right? Like a lot of times he's the best shooter alive, ever. And it's funny because he can like withhold some of the tips of how to shoot well. But like there's this new guy named Jordan Poole, right? And
mm,
Steph Curry could be like, you know what, I'm not gonna teach anybody like what my secrets are. But in fact he teaches them that because he's not afraid if they're gonna beat his record. Because
right, because he's not living for his record.
and also exactly, and also too, it's like records are meant to be broken. So for him, I done the best that I could, and that's all that matters. I don't care if somebody breaks my record
Yeah,
because I just did the best that I could. It doesn't, matter too much. That's why I'll share whatever I'll share because, like, I'm not afraid of them, even if they beat my record. So what? And
exactly.
that's one thing that people are afraid, to share these days because, like, they can't say so what when people break their record.
Yes, and that's really
yeah.
important. But
Actually, you should be happy. Well, for me, example, as a pastor, and I always allow my disciples or people who were supposed to be under me. I don't really want that goes the word under, but for the lack of a better word. And then I see them preaching, and I'm just there listening, and I'm so happy how they preach. That now they've improved a lot. Uh, it never sort of threatens me that one day they will replace me. In fact, I'm happier because
then
I
you can
just
like
felt
take a
that they can
break.
replace, yeah, they can replace me sooner, or that and that I can preach less, so they can preach more, so I can
But that's,
relax more. And
but that's exactly
I always say, wow, it's so nice to feel just in the back seat of the church,
Yeah.
every so often,
But
and
that's
hearing you
exactly what
guys.
like
Yeah,
Paul felt, like
yeah.
because Paul could have been like an envious person and say, hey, like, look, I
I'm
want
not
to
gonna
hog
teach Timothy how to do anything.
exactly. I want to hog all these like for myself. But like the reality is that he was willing to be replaced. And that's the main thing is that once we're willing to be replaced, then everything becomes a gift. Also, like it's
And if
another
you
test.
notice,
Like
oh, go ahead, Josh.
if you're not willing to be replaced, then maybe you're still envious.
If you notice too, a lot of times when someone becomes very famous or very popular or anything, they revert back to their mentor, and usually the mentor gets remembered along with that person's legacy. And if the mentor was just so selfless and not envious of the other person, then it's like both of them became famous. Then like you just become famous and then someone breaks your record anyway and then you're forgotten now. But if you included yourself and helped get that person to where they're at,
you'll always be remembered.
You'll always be remembered as well. But
That's
I
fair.
think this was, oh, Dad, did you have anything
Like,
to add
like,
before
like
I close?
I heard Michael Jordan say that he was so proud of Kobe Bryant. Even if Kobe was really comparing with what's really like trying to like
Beat what he did.
beat what he did, because Kobe calls him every so often, and he
Mhm.
was really like mentoring Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe.
In fact, it's fascinating because he even said that when Kobe died, a piece of him died.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Which is
But like
sad.
that's but that's the impact that, like as a mentor that you should have, is like you should be so happy for the people that you are teaching, that like, when they succeed, you know what I'm saying, that you're like that you're in that with them. And also when they like, for example, for Kobe, like if they pass away, it's like
It's like you lost.
it should hurt.
Yeah,
It
it should
hurt, you know what
hurt
I'm saying?
because you were part of them and they were part of you. You know what I mean?
Because if it doesn't hurt, then you're like, oh, thank God that they didn't pass my record. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's like,
messed up. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
so
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. But that's how people think. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I wish that their careers would end because that way,
Then my
they
career would be better.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's horrible. But anyway, I think this was a really good discussion on envy. I think we covered a lot of ground. We had a lot of examples in real daily life. So I think this was a really good topic. But I'll go ahead and close us in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this time together that we can discuss envy deeper. We can understand what it looks like in our daily lives. And thank you for the time that we got to talk about how we can overcome it and how we can pinpoint it so that we can avoid it and not fall into the temptation of comparison, of being envious of other people's achievements. Help us to always focus on your plan for our lives. Help us to focus on what you have for us and not try to compare ourselves with other people, but instead use other people as motivations and benchmarks to be better. Thank you for this time. Thank you for anyone that's watching this or listening to this episode. May they be blessed with what we've talked about today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.